The hard part is deciding which life you want to wonder about and which life you want to live. I found myself questioning what I truly wanted in my life and wondering if there was more to this existence than just the daily grind that I was experiencing. And it was months of contemplation and self-doubt that led me to this breaking point. Hi, my name's Kate, and I had what seemed like my dream job. I had a pretty good salary and I had an opportunity to rise up the ranks in a global company. Everyone around me was really impressed with what I'd achieved for myself, and I was impressed with myself. As a Capricorn sun, I'd made it my badge of honor for working hard and smart for the last 10 years. I had made my career my whole personality, and so without it, who was I? What did I truly want in my life? What did I truly think about myself? Although this badge that I found so hard to part with, it came at a cost. And even though I had a good salary, it was really difficult to budget in a plummeting economy. And I was struggling financially. And at 27 years old, I made the decision to move back home with my parents. And then this resulted in really long commutes to work every day. So I was driving for 3 hours every day. And there's only so many podcasts that you can listen to in a week without going crazy. And it was just really draining my energy. And it was manifesting in like speeding fines, parking tickets, and just kind of careless and reckless driving. It was getting to a point that I was working to make money to pay to go to work. And it was stealing my precious time away from actually working on my many hobbies and passions. And I would get home so late that I just wouldn't have any energy to keep working on my passions. And as a manifesting generator, working on my hobbies and having other things outside of my day job is so important to me. And it was genuinely painful for me to push my hobbies to the side while I just focused on my day-to-day job. And it was genuinely years and years of this drowning feeling building up inside of me. I had previously ended up in hospital with heart palpitations due to stress from work, and that should have been my breaking point, but it wasn't. Like I said before, my career is my whole personality as a Capricorn sun. And when I had finally done enough work on myself to realize that this isn't what I want for my life, it was like I was back to square one, honestly. I was struggling to see what my purpose is in this life. And I realized that I was simply existing and not really living. I need to tell you about the astrology that has been playing on my mind recently and how this correlates to why I quit my job without a backup plan or any savings really. I'm not an astrologer, but I've used astrology as a self-development tool for many years now, and as an alternative to therapy in most cases. So if you're into astrology, you'll know what I'm talking about, but Pluto moved into Aquarius in the last year or so, and it's been a big deal astrologically. Like, it's quite literally changing everything about the world that we live in, about our learned patterns, our learned behaviors as individuals, everything that we've learned over the past 15 years when Pluto was in Capricorn. And if you're like me in your late 20s or early 30s, Pluto in Capricorn is the only thing that we've really known as adults. Older generations have gone through other Pluto transits before, but for us, it's quite a big deal in our lives. For me, it's hitting my area of career and reputation, which checks out definitely. Back in January, when Pluto first moved into Aquarius, I noted in my diary to use this energy and this transit to shift anything that's been outdated or is feeling uncomfortable in my career. And for me, with Pluto, the planet of complete transformation, this was going to be a shift in the career that I had created for myself up until this point. And I've done enough work on myself now to know that disconnecting from the outcome and releasing any control on timing and specifics is the most fastest and comfortable option for when life-altering moments like this come up. Just essentially flowing with it, no matter what absurd or insane idea comes up, because that's when the real magic and life transformation happens. This recent juxtaposition of the Capricorn and Aquarius energy I've been feeling, it's overwhelming. It's between the familiar pool of Capricorn, which is like corporate safety, having financial security, and the new feeling that's coming through of Aquarius, which seems like a more aligned career path for me, one that is like future focused, one with a more aligned community, and one that allows me to make a difference in this world. I can really feel this contrast when I'm sitting in a boardroom at work and there's discussions happening about why sales are plummeting and how it's up to me to fix it. even though we're in an economic recession, where before I would have actively participated in those discussions, but since Pluto has changed signs, this now feels really out of alignment for me. It's not like we're saving lives, it's just fashion. And Saturn has a role to play here as well, because Capricorn and Aquarius are both traditionally ruled by Saturn. There's been this huge shift from Saturn ruled Capricorn culture, where we glorified having status and wealth, to now a more Saturn ruled Aquarius culture of cancelling anyone who is not using their power to benefit, empower, or make a positive societal impact. And if you're on the Let Them Eat Cake TikTok trend at the moment, you'll understand how Aquarius is actually changing the game. I actually just saw this morning this animated short film that depicts the society we were living in under Pluto in Capricorn. It's called Let Them Eat Cake, and it's by at zerosum.g. So go check that out. So this all happening ultimately led for me to decide to quit corporate. And I was feeling increasingly dissatisfied and disconnected from the corporate world and its values, and with the lack of positive impact the fashion industry is having on the world, and also just witnessing the industry attempting to regain control over its employees' lives, where we gained a lot of control with the lockdowns. Now it feels like they were tightening their belts and trying to hold on to that Capricorn pull, whereas the society at large is feeling that shift into Aquarius and trying to gain more freedom. So for me, it was a tightening of processes around work flexibility, and it felt like my freedom was trapped by a system where every move is dictated and my choices are limited by the demands of the corporate world and the need for financial transactions. Pluto's energy is truly life-changing and transformative. It's the breaking down of structures that are no longer serving you and then creating an entirely new one in its place. It's death, it's deconstruction, and it's renovation. And in my chart, I have really strong Plutonian energy, and it's not the first time in my life that I've been influenced by this destructive and transformative power. So understanding the cyclical nature of Pluto, I now recognize that I need to embrace the chaos as an opportunity for self-discovery and renewal in an area that clearly has not been working or is no longer serving me anymore. So it was actually Pluto that prompted this introspective reflection of my life and my life's purpose and my long-term aspirations. I was confronted by the fear and uncertainty around going down a completely new life path, but the recognition of my previous patterns and self-reflection has comforted me in deciding to resign and make way for a more soul-fulfilling, soul-aligned life path. Although that seems like enough convincing for a spiritual girly like myself, there were so many real life challenges that I needed to face in order to actually make this decision. Like the egoic pressures of being promised a really big promotion within the next year, and a chance to lead a team and lead a big project, chance to really enhance my resume essentially. My ego went back and forth with my subconscious as to why it would be an incredibly silly decision to quit at this point in my career, especially when I've worked so hard to get to this point for so long as well. There were also a lot of external pressures, like people in my life telling me to rethink this decision, where little did they know that I've been ruminating on this for literally months and subconsciously for years actually. And their stress and worry of the unknown was feeding into my ego in thinking, how could I resign without a plan? I had to constantly remind myself that the life that they were living is not the life that I actually want to live for myself. So why would I follow their advice if I'm not envisioning that as my lifestyle? And after all the work that I've done on myself, now these days, my subconscious is actually onto my ego, so I can easily spot these patterns and behaviors when they come up. It's patterns and behaviors that I've been doing for years, and they no longer serve my personal growth. So I was able to look at my ego's influence from a third person perspective and understand the importance of staying true to that niggling feeling from my subconscious. And when I tell you, I really had no backup plan. I resigned with no backup plan. I resigned with 2 months notice to figure it all out. I didn't have any substantial savings that would secure me for 2 years. I was honestly in debt when I resigned, and I still am. And I can feel a pit at the bottom of my solar plexus when I think about this debt. This debt is inducing fear and anxiety, and I had to do so much reprogramming around this feeling to switch to feeling like I was taking a leap of faith and that the universe would catch me. And I just had to trust that the universe would catch me, essentially. And one of the ways that I tried to reprogram this self-limiting belief was by visualizing, and I would imagine myself like running off the edge of a really tall building, a really tall skyscraper, and once I like made the leap off the edge, instead of like falling, I was levitating. So like it was something that was holding me up in the air, like something had caught me and I was sky high and I was feeling free and the wind was blowing through my hair and I was happy, I was smiling. So visualizing this from my point of view made me reprogram or start to reprogram my mind into trusting the universe to support and guide me as I made this big leap. And it kind of gave me confidence to do it as well. And it made those feelings of anxiety and fear around my financial worries lessen, and also just become easier to recognize, become aware of, and work through. I also had many symbolic experiences in the lead up to me resigning that kind of reaffirmed to me that it was the right decision. Like seeing angel numbers, like I remember the day that I resigned, I saw 222 on my odometer. I know my car is old. I also saw angel numbers just everywhere, like not even just on my phone, like on very old cars, on buildings, in the most random places. Like if you have been attacked by angel numbers from your guides, you will understand what I'm saying when you just get attacked. 222 in particular is a reminder to me to stop the mental conflict that is surrounding a big life-changing decision, to just reaffirm that you're onto something with that decision. You're on the right path. 444, which I was also seeing quite often, is a good reminder of financial security is coming for me. I kind of associate 444 with financial security. So I didn't have a backup plan. I had recently moved back home with my parents and I brought down all my costs to the bare minimum. I just got rid of like all the expenses in my life. And this was a really good start. And I'd also contemplated my backup options, like taking a job as a barista, dog walking, things like that, to just bring in some income to keep me afloat. And I think like knowing and exploring those options of how I could make income if I really needed to, without being in a corporate job, that was kind of like reassuring, gave me some confidence to release that anxiety that I was having around financial circumstances. For me, I guess, quote unquote, setting myself up was moving back home, reducing my spending, and that was all. And despite that fear that kept coming up around financial issues, and to be honest, it still does come up a lot, I just had to make a commitment to myself to keep reprogramming that limiting belief that I had around money, and to recognize and make aware of what it actually is that I want in my life. So doing the actual work to figure that out. Throughout this whole process of making the decision to do the damn thing and quit, I realized many things about myself and about how the world actually works. There were lots of positives that came out of quitting, but of course lots of negatives. But I don't choose to see them as negatives. I choose to see them as like lessons learned. One of the positives is that I realized that my main goal for my life as a late 20-year-old single female with barely any responsibilities is to prioritize my personal fulfillment whilst I still can. I want to live a life that feels meaningful and fulfilling to me, rather than solely chasing financial success. Now, money is just a way to support myself, and it's not the end goal anymore where it was before. I've also realized that I truly want to make a difference in this world, and I want to help people, and I don't want to use all my energy on someone else's dream who has proved that they don't really care about their employees' well-being. And I'm not talking shit about my old job. I really loved working at that place, but it's just the industry in general, it's capitalism in general. I also realized there's a lot of other content creators that talk about hustle culture and going home to work on your side business and balancing work and passion whilst doing all the things like sleeping, eating, seeing friends, staying fit, etc. And this may suit a small percentage of people, but I have this feeling it simply doesn't work for the large majority of us, including myself. Now, being unemployed and working on my passion projects, I've actually realized that my most productive hours are between 7 a.m. and 11 a.m. and 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. And this is far from traditional working culture. My most productive hours of the day were previously spent waking up, getting ready for work, driving to work, and then when I would work late, it was driving home, eating, feeling really tired from the day. Couldn't really utilize my most productive hours of the day because one, I never knew that they were my most productive hours of the day because I never had the chance to explore that. So I think becoming more in tune with my body and the natural rhythms of my body, and even like through cycle syncing, I really can perform at my most peak now. I also just keep reminding myself of what it means to be in your late 20s these days. Some have gone off and created families for themselves and had children, but I know a large portion of us young females are still single, and children and marriage is just not in the picture, at least in the short-term future. So why are we working jobs that age us by 20 years and affect our mental health negatively when we could be following more creative, heart-led passions, embracing our youthfulness and the energy of our youthfulness, following the natural rhythms of our body? This may sound pretty naive considering we all have to support ourselves, but why can we not do it in a way that feels good to us? This is a genuine question. There's a spiritual teacher called Bashar, and he said many times that we must choose the option that ignites joy and makes us feel excited. And if you're faced with two options, always pick the one that makes you excited. And a fear around that is not knowing how that option is going to pan out or how we're going to make that option work. But if it's the right option for you, it will always work. You just need to sit back and watch, because you did the only thing that you as a human needed to do, and that was make the decision and follow joy. And the rest really does not sit in your control. So just sit back and enjoy the joy. Now, I'm going to bring up finances again, because unfortunately it's a major factor into something that we need to consider when we quit our jobs without a backup plan or any financial savings. And it will pretty much make or break us through this whole process of choosing a more soul-aligned path. I was incredibly fortunate that I could lean on my parents and move back home. And this was the reason that I felt so confident to actually resign so suddenly and lean on my support system. I saw a TikTok creator called It's Guru Benny, and she kind of put into words about how I was feeling and what I realized about the economy. Because at the moment, a lot of people are struggling to make ends meet, including myself. But she kind of talks about the law of polarity, and what we know about the law of polarity is it describes that everything comes in a pair. So there's masculine and feminine, there's yin and there's yang, etc. And if that is the case, then we can surely conclude that the same amount of people that are struggling financially, there is that same amount of people that are not struggling financially in this economy. Although I am not in a position currently to say that I'm not struggling in this economy, because I am, but why can't I decide to be one of those people on the other side of the spectrum that are not struggling, the side that is feeling financially free, who are not struggling to pay their bills, the opposite of what I'm feeling right now? If we get to decide who we want to be in this lifetime, why can't I be on the other side of it? Maybe this topic needs a whole other video because I could go on. So if you're watching this video, you're probably also considering quitting your job, and you probably don't have a clue what to do next. If so, then my personal advice is to always prioritize your fulfillment over financial success. I think once you stop caring about societal expectations and lean into your true life's purpose, you can never fail and you will always be caught. By focusing on finding a path that aligns your values and passions in life, you will realize that money should not actually dictate your life, it should support your life. I also want to reiterate what I said earlier about taking the time to reflect on what truly brings you joy and excitement. Trusting your inner intuition, your guidance when making decisions, and watching the magic unfold. In other words, would you be happy to spend the next 40 years of your life doing exactly what you're doing every week right now? Think about that. Or when you think about that, does something more meaningful come up in your mind? Is there something else that is trying to itch its way in to that reality? And personally, knowing the astrology of at least the next 20 years and what is going to pan out, I would really insist you ruminate on that point a little longer. And my final advice is to really lean on any support systems that you can. Sometimes it's hard to admit that you need help, but really leaning on friends, on communities, or even the government to help support you can really give you some confidence to make the tough decision to follow your life's purpose and your soul-aligned career which potentially would mean resigning from your current job. And really work on digging into your limiting beliefs about what success and what financial freedom looks like to you, and working to reprogram that mindset. It is truly exciting and invigorating waking up every day knowing that I get to spend the day doing what I want to do and doing something that is more soul aligned and feels better to me than getting up in the morning, getting ready, driving 3 hours every day to work, and then coming home with no energy to actually work on things that I want to work on. Life is not supposed to be hard. We shouldn't be getting wrinkles at the age of 27. So I hope this video at least inspired you to think about your own life and what you want to be doing over the next 40 years. If it did, tell me in a comment, or you could leave a like if you're shy. Much love.